Welcome back, hikers, to the channel Follow Bigfoot, where our motive is to motivate. I'm back here on Thursday to do our Q&As each and every single week. We're answering as many questions that we can get to that you guys ask. Now, you can ask your question a couple different ways. First, and easiest, is down below in the comments section. Go ahead and type down there whatever question you have that relates to the outdoors, hiking, backpacking, gear, you name it. Now, you can also go to my Facebook page or my Instagram page, and you can leave a comment underneath my Q&A post each and every week what your question for the week is. And what we're going to do is we're going to pool all of those questions, and we're going to pull them to next week's Q&A and answer as many of them as possible in a 10 to 15 minute time frame. Now, if you're not into the social media thing, go ahead and email me your questions at followbigfoot@yahoo.com. Now, before I get into this week's Q&A, I want to take a moment and do a major shout out to the leaders in our Million Step Challenge. If you're not familiar with the Million Step Challenge, I threw out a challenge to everyone in this community that's willing to sign up and be crazy enough to do this thing. And basically what it is, it's you walk 1,000,000 steps. That's what the challenge is challenging you to walk 1,000,000 steps in the first quarter of 2018, January 1st to March 30th. Wait a second, is there 30 days in March or is there 31? I always forget January, February, March. 31 days. Anyways, there's 90 days in this challenge. You have to average 11,111 steps each day in order to stay on pace to be able to hit this 1,000,000 steps by the end of the quarter. If this is something that interests you, to accept the challenge, all you need to do is go to the Facebook group that we created for this. It's called Viking and Bigfoot's 1,000,000 Step Challenge. I'll put the details below for the group, and go to the group and just like the group. We'll get you entered in, and that's it. Each and every day, you can track your steps, whether you use some sort of Garmin watch, a Fitbit, maybe it's a phone app, whatever it is. We have a spreadsheet that one of the folks in the challenge, Freddie, major shout out. Thank you so much, Freddie, for doing that. Freddie put together this awesome spreadsheet that we have saved into the Google Docs. All you got to do is go into the group. You'll see the spreadsheet in there, and then log into that each and every day, or if you want to do it every few days, whatever time that you want to, and log in your steps. It's on the honor system, and every single week I am going to do an update on the leaderboard at the start of my Q&A. So far, we have 113 people that are participating in the challenge. Now, Viking and I are doing something a little bit more insane. Most of you probably know that we're doing the 4-state challenge on the Appalachian Trail this winter. To prepare for it, we are trying to walk these 1,000,000 steps in half the time, 45 days. So after a week, I have the leaders, the top 10 leaders in this challenge that I want to do a shout out with right now. In the top position, Phil White, 217,619 steps 1 week. That's amazing. Just behind Phil White is Seth. Seth walked 208,055 steps. Then Bigfoot, myself, I was in third, 165,679. Viking is in fourth. I just edged him out by like 900 steps. Viking. And then Terry is in fifth place, 145,987, followed by Brian, which is at about 145,000 steps. Freddie, the one that created the spreadsheet, is closely behind and in the hunt at 142,000. Then we got Clay at 141,998, so we'll give him 142. Michelle is at 138,356, and then rounding off number 10 for our top 10, Scott Johnson, 137,204. Now, this 1,000,000 Step Challenge was really meant to be able to help inspire everyone together. We are actually inspiring each other. There's all kinds of positive messages going back and forth, and pictures, and how we are motivating each other to get out, maybe fit in that extra half an hour, maybe an hour at the gym, wake up an hour earlier, whatever it is to be a little bit more active. It's been an amazing first 10 days. We actually have one person that is already 1/3 of the way to 1,000,000 steps after 10 days. So again, all the details of the 1,000,000 Step Challenge is below in the description box. Well, moving on to the Q&A. we actually didn't have a ton of questions asked in last week's Q&A. I know that there's probably a lot of questions that might be on your mind. If there's something that I have not gotten back to you on, maybe a question in videos in the past, make sure that you put them below so that I can try to answer as many of those questions as I can. But we're going to answer all 6 of the questions that I had from last week. Great channel. Thank you for all of the insight on hiking. I am planning on doing some more AT hiking. I live in South Florida and need some advice on training for elevation. I'm thinking about getting one of those elevation masks to train with. What are your thoughts on the mask, and do they work? As it pertains to the elevation masks, I've actually never had them. I've never owned one. I've never used one. So I can't really tell you if it's effective or not. If anybody has any experience with that, please comment below and help out Bill here. Now, as it pertains to training for the AT, living in South Florida, if you don't have a lot of terrain that has a lot of elevation change, what I'd recommend is to try to find places that you can maybe try to replicate that. Maybe it's an office building that's got 20 flights of stairs. Strap my pack on and hike up the 20 flights of stairs, descend, probably take a break here or there, go back up them. At least you'll be able to start to get a feel of some of the elevation that you would see when you're hiking through the mountains. Now, if you do have areas close to you that has some decent terrain, for me, I got a place about 10 minutes from where I live. It's a 6.5 mile loop, and I gain about 1,300 feet of elevation. It's no mountains, it's just rolling terrain. It's lots of hills, probably 4 or 5 decent sized hills every single mile on average, and really help get myself trained for elevation. Now, I am using this specific trail to help me get prepared for the Winter 4-State Challenge. Are you going to do a gear review of your winter hike setup? Yep, I'm definitely doing it. I'm going to do it this weekend. I have been trying to balance out my time. It's kind of been a crazy start of the year. There were some family things that went on, and I just am a little bit behind. So I'm going to do my winter hike setup. I'm going to publish it sometime this weekend, probably on Sunday. So wait for that to come out. I'll talk about all of my gear, the choices, and then on a separate video, I'll talk a lot about a lot of the things that I would do differently. This is my first overnight winter backpacking trip, and like anything, there's a lot of things that I learn on these kind of trips. So I will also do one that just talks about all the things that work, but more importantly, the things that I would do differently next time. Hey Bigfoot, I remember from a previous video that you said you trained for the AT on the Ozark Trail because you lived in Missouri. I live in Missouri as well and would love to get into backpacking. Do you know any other great trails for backpacking in Missouri? So the Ozark Trail, that's where I trained for the Appalachian Trail. That is correct. It was about 2.5 hours from where I lived, and it was great. I actually had a great time hiking parts of the Ozark Trail, and it did a great job with getting me as prepared as I could and ready for my 100-day through hike in the Appalachian Trail. I would hike the most difficult section of the trail, which is the Tom Sock section, I believe is what it's called. And I would start with low mileage and then add mileage as I went, and it got more and more difficult, of course, as well. Now, other trails that I used, the most frequent one was one that was really close to my house. It was called the Lewis and Clark Trail. It is right around St. Charles, just south of St. Charles. They have a 5-mile loop and an 8-mile loop. It was something that was great for me to be able to go and do a nice hike after work. Not something that you'd be doing any sort of overnight hiking trip on. I did a lot of running on the Katy Trail. It was really flat. It's pancake flat, as a matter of fact, but I did do a lot of running to help get me prepared for that. And then there was also some other trails. I will put them below in the details because I can't remember exactly what the names of the trails were. But there's definitely some other ones that I would recommend. But the Ozark Trail was absolutely fantastic. I'm not sure where you live in Missouri, but if you are anywhere close to that Ozark Trail, I'm telling you that Tom Sock section is a great way to be able to give you an idea of what the trail, the AT, is going to be like. Yeah, let us know how those trekking poles hold up. What Keith is referring to is the Knockout Doors carbon and cork trekking poles that I've been using for about 2 months now. I mentioned to you guys that I would report back to you when I had more miles under my belt with these poles and let you know how they held up. I think I'm at the point now where I can describe and give you guys a better review of how they hold up. Now, I've had different carbon fiber poles in the past and they have never worked out well for me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a separate video because I want to discuss this more, give you guys an update about these poles, and show you a few things so I can kind of just give you a full disclosure of what my final thoughts are on the carbon and core trekking poles from Knockout Doors. So when are you going to do shirts? Just haven't pulled the trigger on them yet. I just have a lot going on and I didn't want to force things into the channel and kind of lose sight of what we are trying to do here. So it's something that will come down the road, maybe in 2018 here. I've actually already had some companies that reached out to me about their platform of how to do the merchandise and t-shirts and things like that. So I've been talking with some folks and I'm just not prepared, and a lot just has to do with commitment of time. I don't have the time to be able to invest doing all kinds of different things because then everything's going to drop. I want to make sure that I have great content on this channel. I want to get back to doing some even better content on my Sunday videos with a different major topic each and every week. I've kind of lost that in the last month and a half, 2 months, when I've been recapping a lot of my hikes and doing gear reviews and all kinds of things. So I want to get back to those. So once I feel the timing is right and I kind of get my head above water, then that's a road that I'm going to cross. But you might be able to see that here in 2018, but it's not going to be anytime in the next 6 months, I don't think. Do I bring cash or credit card on the AT? If so, how much cash in paper bills and how much cash on a card? All right, so this is a great question. I've had a similar question like this asked a couple different times. So as it pertains to cash, I recommend carrying right around $100. Don't think that you need to carry much more than $100. But what you carry in paper bills, I would carry some 20s. I would carry probably a 10 of 5, and I would make sure that I would carry like 5 ones. You just never know what you might come across. You might come across a vending machine when you're crossing a road. You might want a soda out of that vending machine, or there might be times that you need to have a few ones or a 5 or something like that to break up a bill to pay for it. Maybe it's a shuttle or something like that. There's just all kinds of different circumstances that you might come in contact. There are some hostels that only accept cash, but most places are going to accept card. I typically would use my card any single time that they accepted a card. There are also places that give you discounts if you're using cash. So if you want to get a small discount, then that might be something that you'll want to think about as well. Asking the question about how much cash on a card, I'm assuming that you're asking, how much money am I going to spend during the course of a hike? You hear a lot about $1,000 per month is kind of the level playing field. When I was on the AT, for 100 days, and I spent around $4,000, maybe it was like $4,200. So I was a little bit above that. Now, I was also staying more frequent at motels and places like that because I needed to be able to upload my YouTube videos. I needed a Wi-Fi service. I didn't, at the time, have a phone that I could use to use the cell data to be able to upload my videos. So I did spend a lot of money just doing things like that, where now that I have a different cell phone provider, I can just use my cell data, and I would just go into hostels or cheaper places and be able to upload my videos, no problem whatsoever. So I know I can save a lot of money. It really depends on the lifestyle that you want to live out there on the trail. Every single time that you go into town, do you want to spend an extra day in town? Do you want to drink every single time that you're in town? Do you want to eat and go out to eat frequently when you're in town? Do you want to catch a flick when you're in town sometimes? All these things add up to be a lot of money. Do you have other hiking friends that you're going to go in together to make things cheaper? Because that's going to cut the cost of lodging. It's going to cut the cost of food and other things like transportation when you do need to take some shuttles that you have to pay for. So all of those things really all come together and will dictate how much money that you're going to spend on the Appalachian Trail. Now, you definitely can get by with spending, $600, $700, $800 a month, but you're going to be living pretty frugal. So it really depends on the experience that you want to have on the Appalachian Trail. Altogether, if you're out there for 5 months, the average person is probably going to spend somewhere between $4,000 to $6,000 for a 5-month hike. And that wraps up our video this week. We only had 6 questions. Make sure that you ask your question below. Anything that's on your mind, ask it below. And again, I'll try to do my best to be able to answer as many questions each and every week. I would love to be able to answer somewhere between 10 to 12 questions if I can each week. Now, last month, I started a monthly newsletter. I'm going to send out my monthly newsletter sometime next week. Make sure that you're signed up for my monthly newsletters. You can do that at followbigfoot.com. I'm going to share in my monthly newsletter some news, a lot of things that I'm not going to share on the channel, at least not anytime soon. So the only way that you're going to hear about it is through that monthly newsletter and some other updates and things like that. So a lot of things that are going on the channel here coming up, updates, news, and of course this weekend I'm going to talk about my winter backpacking trip by starting off with the gear. So stay tuned for many more sightings, and remember to always follow Bigfoot.